to item 10, the Equality, Diversity and Inclusion Policy, and I'll hand over to the portfolio holder for Resources and Governance. Councillor Garrett.
Thank you, Chair.
Can I ask you to move it first?
Yes, I move the report.
And can I second it? Over to you, Steve.
Thank you, Chair. As many members will know, having read this, this document goes beyond our legal obligations, and it looks to create a more robust policy around the areas of equality, diversity and inclusivity. Before I move much further on into the report, I would like to pay tribute to Francis Mason, former councillor whose work can be seen all the way through this document. And I will admit to coming in at the end of this policy is by no means my inception, but I wouldn't have given my endorsement and be talking to you today if I didn't agree with its contents. And so I'd like to pay tribute to her for that. And so to the officers that have briefed me on the historical development of this work. So with that in mind, I'll proceed, Chair. So, as many of you that have probably read this document already know that the Council is obliged under the Equalities Act 2010 to have due regard to public sector equality duty. Our current policy, which was agreed in 2018, is limited in scope and only covers our legal requirements. And so the proposal of this policy is to go beyond that, and it does so by setting out three key policy objectives. And I refer you to those on page 78 of the document. And I'll just list them, particularly for members of the public that might not have access to this in front of them at the moment. And that is to A, the council services are accessible to everyone and do not discriminate on any unjustifiable ground. B, the council services seek to meet the needs of our customers and local communities and can influence our services. And C, equality and diversity is championed within the council and workforce at all levels, is representative of the local community. There are a number of appendices that go alongside this document, and important is the Equality Action Plan. And the Equality Action Plan is designed because to make this policy more flexible and to move with the changing dynamics of the world, really. And so as things progress, more things can be added into the action plan, and it allows us to be more flexible in our approach to achieving those objectives. And contained within the action plan is an action to actually engage widely with all stakeholders across our town and our local community, and that is very much our way, and we will use our equalities engagement strategy to help drive that engagement further. So that is that. It also sets out in Appendix D, and there will be a process for determining whether an equality impact assessment needs to be undertaken. Now, as you would know from reading the documents, an equalities impact assessment is not a legal obligation that we have to take, but the Council and I certainly feel that it is the most robust way of making sure that we are meeting our objectives when making policy decisions. This will be reported annually through the Equality, Diversity and Inclusivity Information Report, which will be produced to allow us to monitor how effective we're being. And again, the action plan will be looked at through the audit function as well, and so there will be constant scrutiny of this document and its actions, meeting those objectives as we go through the new municipal year. I think I'll pause there, Chair, because I think I've introduced most of the main items there, and I'm quite happy to take questions.
Thank you very much. I'll reserve my right in that. And Councillor Durkin is already showing me a question.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. In relation to recommendation B, Russell, who is the Officer Equality Working Group? And in your opinion, is that the most appropriate group that should be dealing with this, or should we be asking for external, independent, impartial, non-political people to actually scrutinise this for us?
Councillor Barrett.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Zerton, for the question. The Officer Equality Working Group is made up of a number of officers across the authority, and they've had a large input into this policy initially. I have talked with Cabinet colleagues, and I've spoken to Councillor Edwards outside this meeting, and indeed the lead officer of the report. And I was going to bring this up outside this meeting, had you not raised this, but I'm going to ask the Cabinet Policy Development Working Group to also look further at this as well, to bring more councillors into looking at this and the action plans as well, particularly around the definition of what inclusivity actually means, because we acknowledge there's more work to be done there, Tony, on what do we actually mean by inclusivity. So certainly take that point. And that is, if I may, it is contained within the action plan, so the policy itself is fairly robust in that regard, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, can I just come back for a second on that particular issue? I welcome everything that you're saying, Russell. I don't disagree, but the credibility of us as a council is going to rest on who are those people who are asking those difficult questions about us. And if we look around the room tonight, we cannot really say that we properly represent the community of Harlow. And I was just wondering whether or not my suggestion of asking independent, impartial, outside the council, with knowledge and understanding of people who come from different sectors of our society, could be included in that, so that at the end of the day we actually feel that actually we have served our community better. Would you consider that? That's the question.
I will certainly consider your point.
And I think Councillor Charles, who's the portfolio holder for the community, also wants to say something there.
Yeah, I think Councillor Durkin makes an important and powerful point, and it runs to the very heart of this administration for you to engage externally with people, because we don't always have the answers to these big questions. And so I think what Councillor Payne was rightly saying is that this is going to Cabinet Area Working Group, whereby recommendations can be taken forward to enhance this document. Maybe one of those recommendations is to look at some form of independent scrutiny. And I would certainly welcome that with the community resilience portfolio.
Thank you very much. Councillor Durkin, do you have a further question?
Oh God, no.
No? Okay, Councillor Harvey, I think I saw you indicating.
You did, and Councillor Johnson, I will just say that I think for this item it's unfortunate that the fourth person to speak was a woman, and I know you will understand that I am going to point those things out going forward. I am on the record after the local elections as making very clear the disappointment that I, as a resident taxpayer and of course elected member, feel that there is a chain, a decision-making chain that stretches from this chamber to Westminster via the County Council, and every single link in that chain is a white man now. And on behalf of every woman whose taxes are being decided by you, I ask that you take very seriously what I'm going to say. And that is, Councillor Morrison came to my house shortly after the article I put in the paper, and she knocked on my front door in some distress, and she said to me, "Janie, we are on the same side, we have to work together." And I said, "Yes, I think you mean we're women, and yes, we are on the same side, but we're not on the same political side, Colleen." And she said, "No, but we have to join forces, it's really important. We're having a committee, there's going to be a committee, it's on diversity and inclusivity. Will you come on it?" And I said, "Well, Colleen, are you the chair?" And she said, "No, I can't do it, I'm too busy, I've got too much gardening, and I'm not confident enough, I'm new. I've never been a councillor before, I have to learn the ropes." And she said, "I'm deaf. I find it very hard to hear. It will be very, very hard for me, Eugenie, I can't possibly do it." She was quite overwhelmed at my suggestion that she do it. And I said, "Well, Colleen, I'm afraid that until you're the chair of such a committee, I'm not going to join it. When you're the chair, I'll happily join it. Now, my question is, what is the committee? I'm interested in it, and I presume it is going to support the work of this report or review the activities of the council in light of diversity. I'm not sure. I'm only repeating what she said to me on my doorstep. And I'd be very interested to know, and I'd be very interested to know who the chair is. That's my first question. I have another question. Thank you.
Thank you. So the committee I was talking about, the Cabinet Policy Development Working Group, is chaired by Shona Johnson, who is a woman.
Sorry, is that the what's the name of that committee?
The Cabinet Policy Development Working Group.
Okay, so the group that Colleen spoke of, perhaps she was confused because she is very new. She said it's a diversity committee, and I mean I agree, I couldn't see it, so I wasn't sure what it was. I was only just it was only that she said to me.
Perhaps I can interrupt you. I don't think any of us knows what you're referencing. Councillor Morrison isn't in the chamber tonight to defend herself, so perhaps we can have a conversation outside. I'm not aware of any other committee that you're talking about. I am aware that we've debated tonight bringing this to the discussion of Cabinet Overview Working Group, whatever it's called, that I'm asking Shona to chair tonight. I will also respond to your question about there being white men here. Partly, I would love to have more Conservative female councillors. I've supported a number of people for election up and down the country, and sadly, not every instance have the electorate decided to elect them, and not just female councillors, councillors of other backgrounds. I will say something, Councillor Harvey, because you've asked about it, and I don't want to embarrass the lady by saying her name. I did actually invite a female member of my group to be part of the Cabinet. And I was turned down, and she said because there are members of the opposition who were the administration that have spoken down to women in the past in the chamber, and she felt that she didn't wish to serve opposite those particular members. And I won't name on either side. I do think we've got a great deal more to do to promote more diversity on both sides of the chamber, be it people of different races, religions, sexualities, genders. I think we need to be as representative as possible, and I think that only happens through the ballot box, through both political parties and other political parties encouraging people to stand. And I would encourage any person in Harlow that's watching this on the film tonight who feels they could stand up and speak for the electorate of Harlow to put themselves forward for election, to come and talk to the different political parties, because that's the only way we're going to increase the diversity of the chamber, is to actively recruit and promote those candidates. But at the end of the day, it's up to the electorate who they do put in this chamber, and I, as a new leader, have picked my cabinet from the best people available for the job, not for to meet any diversity quota, not to meet any sexual quota, not to meet any gender quota, and actually I do think there is quite a great deal of diversity in the chamber, but we could always do with more. Are there any other questions? Councillor Harlow.
Sorry, I said I'd have a second one. On the point that one of your colleagues didn't feel able to step up to the Cabinet, I completely concur. It is incredibly intimidating and distressing, and I've not enjoyed it myself at all the last 2 years. My question is this. Within the political parties, obviously there's a very limited amount to what, I obviously can't influence the number of women candidates in the Tory party. So, from that point of view, there is nothing that I can do in terms of that. What does concern me, though, and has always concerned me, is there are 5 senior management roles on this council, and there is 1 chief executive. That is 6 roles. 5 of them are men. And what is this council doing to ensure that that does not go on any longer? Because I can assure you, to be a woman in a minority in those senior meetings with politicians is not pleasant, and we have a duty of care to change that. And I hope very much to see in the action plan activities and positive action, not just tick boxing, but actions that are going to ensure that we see 50-50 representation of senior management within, I would hope, this administration.
I'll come to Councillor Crane to answer the specific in a moment, but if I can, I too am sad that I've inherited a senior management team that isn't perhaps as diverse as you want. However, I do believe in a meritocracy over just a tick box exercise, and I do think it should always be the best person for the job, regardless of sex, gender, sexuality, colour, race. And I think, you know, we have a very good senior team of officers, and just because not all of them are women, or not almost all of them are men, doesn't mean they're bad at their job.
This is the point.
And I wouldn't want anyone to mistake what you were saying and think that. That being said, I'll ask Councillor Perrin if he wishes to answer the specific of the question.
I'll answer the specific. I'll reserve my opinions for the comment section, Chair. If you return to
Russell, can you come a bit nearer to your microphone?
I should project.
Oh, excellent.
If I refer you to page 90 of the document under the Harlow Policies Action Plan, so it's objective 3, 3.5c, I've addressed that very specific point, and actually this is one of the few things, Chair, that I have altered about the document itself, as well as the title, Inclusivity, which I thank the Deputy Leader for his input on. But under 3.5c, I asked that the following be put in. To ensure the Council has up-to-date information on the workforce profile and its workforce is representative of the local community that it serves. And the part I've asked for is that the review, to review the information gathered under 3.2, the published gender pay gap information on the website, to ensure that the opportunities in the workforce are indeed fair and transparent in order to address the very point that you raised. So that is the specific answer to the question, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Perrin, and thank you for adding that to the document. Are there any other questions? Councillor Vince?
Thank you, Chair. First of all, let me say I welcome the report. Thank you, Councillor Perrin, for mentioning Councillor Mason in your opening statement. I wasn't going to mention this, but after hearing what Councillor Harvey had to say about her experience with Cabinet, I felt I have to share that Councillor Mason experienced similar issues at Cabinet, and I remember one particular Cabinet where she was very upset, and I feel it's certainly easy to tackle. It's not a political issue, you know that. It is about making sure that we can encourage people from all sections of society to get involved in politics, because actually by doing that we do improve the quality of the debate, of politics, of our town ultimately. I want to go back to talk about the staffing and the senior echelons of the council. And I want to pay tribute, and I don't want to embarrass her, because I know she doesn't like this, but to Jane Greer, who I think is a real role model for women in our town, and I say that real strongly. And I only got to meet with Jane virtually when I was portfolio holder, and I'm very jealous of Councillor Charles being the portfolio for community when events are actually going to happen. But Jane is a real role model for women in this town, and something I discussed with her as a portfolio holder, and I am getting to the question, I promise, was about an event where women that are at high levels within the council could actually speak to and just some sort of event to the public, to other members of staff, to encourage them to apply for roles. Because actually, I think part of the problem is actually, Chair, that women don't feel they can apply for the senior roles. And actually, if they did, and there's an example right over there, Jane, doing a good job. So that's something I would really urge, that the administration, as an opposition leader, would be really willing to support something like that, and something equally with the Bay Police as well, that would, an event that would encourage people from all ethnic minorities, all backgrounds, all genders to apply for more senior roles in the council.
I think your question there was, would we be willing to have a conversation with you about that, in which case, yes, I'm very willing to have a conversation with you about that, and if it's something that could be achieved cross-party without bringing the party politics into it, then all the better. Any other questions? Okay, so we'll move from questions to debate. Does anyone want to say anything about the report? Councillor Vince, I'll take you first.
Thank you, Chair. I really welcome this report, and I do, and I hope you'll forgive me, Chair, I do want to pay tribute to Councilor Frances Mason. And I know her daughter is going to be viewing the video that your Harlow are going to put up on this, so I do want to mention it, if you'll forgive me. This report reflects how much importance, rightfully, that Frances put on the topic of equality and diversity and inclusivity. and I hope this report and the implementation of it can be her legacy to the people of Harlow. In a small period of time as a councillor, and an even smaller period of time as a portfolio holder, she must have made such a huge positive difference to people. And I, for one, feel very, very lucky to call her not just a colleague, but a friend. And I thank you for your comments today about her, and I hope that we can make this a success, we can move it forward, and we do it together for Frances. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Vince, and no apology needed to speak about the work and life of Councillor Mason, who, as you know, I knew since I was about 12, so was a fixture.
She did used to tell me a lot about
I know she used to say to me as well. Anyone else wish to speak? Councillor Dowers, I think I can see you back there raising your hand.
From the 2 of 9's chair. Yeah. Yes, Frances Mason on our endless Zoom meetings really kept us fully informed on this, and hopefully Zoom meetings will be a thing of the past. But certainly she was very persuasive until, sadly, she became ill and died. So I'd like to echo all of the sentiments. The 4 years I was on Essex County Council chair, I heard David Finch say, "I've appointed the best people to my cabinet," and for 4 years, 9 out of the 10 were men. So not much is going to change here, I assume. So we're going to look forward to equality, hopefully, and I'm glad that Tories have actually taken this on board, and I thank them for that. But actions and words are two very different things, and hopefully there'll be some concession about this in the ranks both. I too agree, we perhaps let the side down in regards to the senior officers of this authority as well, but that needs to be addressed.
Further contributions? Councillor Charles?
Thank you, Chair. I would like to take this opportunity to thank Councillor Mason for her contribution. And I remember actually talking about the development of this policy when we were planting trees in East Park, and her passion for moving this forward, getting the action plan in a state whereby it had some real meat on the bones. And I remember that conversation very clearly. For me, the starting block with equality policy is that no one has a monopoly over what equality diversity should be defined as. You have to mould it with the community around you, and one of the features of this administration will be that we sometimes don't know all the answers to these types of questions, and that's why we want to bring in the community and engage with them to build out the action plan so that we can reinforce what the policy says around protected characteristics. Engagement will be very important, going across age, ability, race, sex, sexual orientation and so on, so that we have a cross-section of opinion reflected in the action plan. The other aspects of this is some of the other groups in our town that should have a strong voice. Those with disabilities, those communities that are emerging in our town, all should be part of a collective voice that helps shape this type of policy. And hanging at the very top of this for the community resilience portfolio will be an ambition to further social inclusion more broadly, so that it complements this policy. Clearly, as Councillor Perry has set out, this policy meets the public sector equality duty, the legal obligation, but goes further. And the feature of my portfolio in particular will be to celebrate those groups, to recognise and bring them into the tent so that we have a more rounded conversation in this town about those views that may in the past not have been as represented as loud as they should have been, but they will be now under this administration.
Councillor Charles, any other contributions? Councillor Perrin, you want to start off?
Thank you, Chair. So I thank all the councillors for their questions, and to almost finish where I started, which is again to pay tribute to Councillor Frances Mason. I'm particularly pleased about the way this document is put together in terms of the fact that it has an action plan which goes with it, that allows this document to have a longer life, to be more resilient, to flex and wane with the various competing future needs that many of us may not even have encountered or thought of yet. So that is the strength of this document, I also feel. And it will become embedded throughout policy making decision in the council, so it will not be a bolt-on, but it will permeate the entire organisation. And I think that is, again, another strength in going beyond our legal requirements. More broadly, I echo the points that have been made by the Legal Council and the Deputy Legal Council in terms of the diversity comes in many forms and is not a monopoly of one particular group or party or person. That is why I have added 3.5c into the action plan, because I want to get under the skin of some of the concerns that have been raised. Why is it that there are fewer women in these top jobs? Because I think to artificially impose a quota is patronising and demeaning to the gender it seeks to support. And I think we actually need to get under and understand that. And you may be surprised to know, Councillor Harvey, that I was actually on the Women's Win March a couple of years ago when we were allowed to march legally through our nation's capital, and I was there at the front with Senator Tosvig and the like, holding the banner, because I think that there is a lot of work to be done, so I do champion that, and I think everyone's contributions. And so, Chair, I move the recommendations on the front of the report A and B, that the Equality and Diversity and Inclusivity Policy attached as Appendix 1 to the report be adopted, and B, through the Officer Equality Working Group, the Council looks at what inclusivity means for Harlow and develops the action plan further to reflect this. So I move that as Chair.
Thank you very much. Can I see if that's agreed?